What is a red flag to watch out for in a guy who wants a relationship with you? Enjoy the show, everyone. What advice do you have for guys? Write in the comments. Story 1. This one is unisex, but someone that pressures you for a relationship before they even know you. People talking about relationships when you have known them less than 30 days. Automatic red flag. At that point, they should just be thinking about friends and dates and going out and messing around and seeing how compatible your lives are when people are pressing for relationships quickly. In my experience, one of two things is going on. They are just relationship hopping, or they are extremely insecure, or in a third case, they are very conservative. All bad. Story 2. If he talks a lot about what kissing is like, there's nothing wrong with being a virgin or never having kissed before. But I dated someone once who adamantly insisted that they knew a lot about it and was extremely unwilling to admit otherwise, but nobody that I've been with before or since has tried to give me a word-by-word instructional guide on how to kiss, and likewise, nobody has ever been so unpleasant to kiss. The sex was even worse. Story 3. Really take note how he or she acts when you're in a dispute or struggling. Do they listen and try to keep an open mind to your opinions and thoughts, or do they trivialize your concerns in a dismissive manner? Are they willing to work together to solve a problem, or do they become reactive instead of proactive? This will tell you a lot about how they will act in a relationship, especially when it comes to important issues. Story 4. In my current experience, when he says he's interested, but is doing very little to indicate interest. When he escalates it more and more, but doesn't ask you about you or call or even seem excited, almost like he's trying to be cool and act like he doesn't care. Sorry, I want someone who cares. Story 5. If you can't laugh at yourself, you won't really laugh with me. Can't really laugh with me? We won't see the same things as funny. If we don't see the same things as funny, I'll find you boring. If you're boring, then you're also not challenging me as a person. If you're not challenging me as a person, you're not wanting to be my partner. If you're not being my partner in life, then it quote s a red flag. Story 6. Watch out for signs of narcissists. They are very charming, usually are well off financially at higher posts. They are a s to everyone. Jealous of anyone who is better than them professionally or personally, never happy for others. If you have a fight with them or provide them feedback, they are usually non-receptive. They think highly of self as though they are flawless. They lack empathy. They are image conscious. Love to boast about self and show off. Run away from them. Narcissists never budge. They will lower your self-esteem, gaslight you, and usually put you on a guilt trip, even for something they are at fault for. Before they get you in commitment, they may put up a facade, but if you are trapped, then it becomes a one-sided relationship because they only love self. Story 7. Bad advice. I don't often ask for advice. I don't even like to complain, but when asked to disclose information, I will tell the whole story. If a guy I am seeing gives me bad advice, especially when I didn't ask for advice, I consider that a red flag. Had a guy ask me what was going on at work that I was visibly stressed about it apparently, so he told me to try to talk to him about it. Told the whole story, some of it is outlined in my post history, about how I was accused of a serious crime at work for no reason other than pure pettiness. His advice to me, again I didn't ask, was, ignore it. Ignore my job of over a decade being at risk because of a clique at work? No thanks. Bad advice equals sign you don't care enough to take me seriously. That's a see ya never from me. Story 8. This whole mentality of looking for red flags and immediately running is honestly a red flag on you as well. To me, that shows that you are not willing or able to work through issues that arise in your life. If there is a red flag in your relationship, it will test whether you two can work through problems that come into our lives. Don't run away from every single red flag you see. Learn to work through issues in relationships and build a solid foundation of healthy communication instead of looking for the bad in people and not dealing with certain things because it's a red flag. Story 9. He tries to tell you how you feel or convince you that you don't actually know how you feel, but he does. He is incapable of apologizing or taking accountability. He takes it personally or as a challenge when you are not in the mood for sex. He lies to you to get you to do things he wants you to do. He has a ton of enemies, frenemies, or ongoing feuds. He mocks you or insults you when you try to set boundaries and or just straight up ignores those boundaries. He very rarely answers questions, shares about himself. He demands that he has access to your messages, social media account, internet history, etc., despite there not being any history of you breaking his trust, but he is cagey about sharing any of his with you. He does not defend or look out for you around his friends, and/or uses you as the butt of all his jokes to his friends. He has lots of very short-lived friendships and very few long-term friendships. He talks poorly about all his friends behind their backs. He tries to convince you that he is smarter than you, funnier than you, cooler than you, etc. Whatever it is, he is telling you that he does not see you as an equal. He makes grandiose statements, promises, and doesn't follow through. He starts pitching marriage way too early on, anytime before 2 years of dating. In every situation this has happened to me, they use it as a way to lock you in fast because it's tiring to keep their nice guy mask on any longer. His Explore page is full of vaguely underage girls in little to no clothes. He harasses women online and/or participates in incel forums. He uses threats to get you to do what he wants. This could be as small as telling you he would be really sad if you don't do the thing he wants you to do, or as big as threatening self-harm/violence/leaving you, revenge porn, etc. No matter what it is, manipulation, and a sign he does not respect your autonomy. He's been dumped in every relationship he's had, bonus points if he has had several short-term relationships, and none over 1.5 years. He has cheated in recent relationships. If he has cheated, he tries to offer justification for it and convince you it was okay because of X, Y, and Z. If he couldn't just grow up and end the relationship, he's a coward with no respect. Simple as. He tries to isolate you from your friends or family. He tries to make you dependent on him by stopping you from developing skills, certifications that could empower you to do things without him, such as learning how to drive, taking that promotion, etc. He boldly insults you, but when you're upset, only tells you he was kidding instead of apologizing. He objectifies other women all the time, but if you so much as look at another guy, he loses his shit. Story 10. Every single person has something negative, but not everyone is narcissist or toxic. So when you start dating someone, listen to that feeling, your gut when you see the first or second negative. It's not going to be screaming, leave, leave sometimes, but you do know at your core if it's something that will keep being an issue. Mine was, he wasn't able to have a disagreement at all. It could never be a discussion or opportunity to talk and even agree to disagree. It either was me giving in to stow the fight, or it was him leaving and ignoring me for hours to days, and then I would still just give in to stop the silent treatment. Silent treatment is something I will never stand for again. If you can go a day without talking to me, go a few more years because I'm good. Story 11. Not having patience. Watch out for anyone that ever says, I've been patient, or anything similar, because that usually means they're actually not patient at all. Insisting you're going to like something, even after you told them multiple times you don't like that thing, won't ever like it. If you catch them telling people X, when X isn't true, and you have no idea why they'd even say that. When they tell people random stuff about you, including stuff that's really personal, and you wouldn't think they'd ever go around talking about it to people. Story 12. If he keeps trying to touch you, especially when you made it clear not to touch you, any excuses or repetition, leave immediately. Or if he seems to try to intentionally escalate or worsen a fight, to use it as an excuse to blow up or go nuts at you without holding back, then using you breaking down as a way to look like the good guy by holding you and cooling you down. Or hell, doesn't have to be a fight. It can be a guy disrespecting your sexual boundaries, and then once you freak out and cry, instantly acting all doting and caring and snuggly to try to confuse you on the fact that he is definitely a predator. Story 13. If he has kids but seems really cagey about them. A friend met this guy online. He was charismatic, friendly, funny, flirty with her. I knew something was up when we all got to talking about our kids, and he seemed very uncomfortable with the topic beyond mentioning he had 3, and that his ex kept them from him. Finally, he admitted he'd been arrested on New Year's Eve once, telling us only, "It was dumb. I was drunk." We figured he had gotten into a drunken fight at a bar or something. I looked him up and holy shit. About 6 years prior, he'd shoved his baby and then wife from their bed and started beating his wife because she wouldn't let him see her phone. She got a hold of his gun and tried to shoot him, but it jammed. She escaped to a bathroom, called 911, and was taken to a hospital with severe head injuries. The drunken arrest? He'd gotten drunk, drove to her house, damaged her and her boyfriend's cars, then drove his truck through her garage door. We broke all contact. I looked him up, and last year he got into a dispute with some guys, followed them in his car, and shot at their car. He'd also assaulted his mom and been arrested for that. It's a matter of time until he kills someone. Story 14. I got 2. 1. Doesn't set boundaries for you to respect. Doesn't know what his boundaries are. 2. Doesn't communicate negative feelings or criticize you in any way for fear of conflict. This is coming from a guy who did both of these things in my most recent relationship. My built-up resentments tore us apart. It's a rough way to go out, especially when the person you're with is actually cool. Story 15. Wondering about red flags in a partner to start second-guess the human nature in the person you are interested in and possibly start overthinking another person's behavioral pattern to the point you don't trust them anymore and cause problem where there were none to begin with. Looking for red flags is like feeding your insecurities. Stop being a bunch of bitches. Story 16, actual guy here. These are just in order of how they appeared from the top of my head. He has all the time in the world and is only focused on you from the start. Not necessarily a huge one, but something to be conscious of. Unless you're trust fund babies, people have shit to do and bills to pay. What's this dude's free time look like? Is he working? If he's got the money not to be working, is he spending his time doing something actually useful? He doesn't have any other friends? Why not? Usually not a coincidence. He's only nice to you. This is true no matter how you say it. If you've never seen him be frustrated or have something that doesn't go his way, you have no idea how he's going to treat you in the hard times that a relationship always creates. Also, if he's curt and rude to other people but all smiles for you, that's not a good thing. He shirks responsibility. Just pay attention to how he talks about his life. If there's always a problem for every solution, an excuse for every mistake, a manager that was a dick, etc., this guy's going to blame you when things aren't going right, and you're not going to be able to convince him he has any part to play in making things better. You like him a lot. Weird one. But I've noticed the women in my life put up with truly egregious shit for men they like, even though I know for a fact that they can do better. It should be a flag for yourself that you may not be thinking clearly about the guy if he's super attractive to you. Like, does he want a relationship like you want, or does he want to keep a girl around who likes him and treats him well while he's scoping out his options? Just a genuine caution. I've done it to women on accident. Any kind of unhealthy addiction, being a smoker or drug user, isn't necessarily a red flag. Most of us are addicted to something and or using things to alter our consciousness. The problem is when it's clearly affecting them poorly. Like weed's cool until they spend most of the day high playing Call of Duty and haven't cleaned their living space in a month. You're not fixing him, ha ha ha, he can be saved, but his salvation will be his own responsibility. Story 17. If they want it, is it a commodity for them? Something where the knowledge of possession makes them feel better? Love is unconditional, and sometimes about self-sacrifice. If I love someone that I have around, I create a healing environment where they can grow in whatever direction, closer to me, and sometimes even farther away. But that is okay because change is a constant in Eastelf. You can literally feel if someone is balanced by themselves and sharing energy with you instead of scraping it away by feeling welcome, warm, relieved, all these things. And it just happens naturally to grow close enough together for a relationship. Story 18. I'm gonna be honest, I was a huge problem in my 20s. It was because I was absolutely 100% not over my ex. I treated the girl I was with really poorly because of it, and it is something I really regret, because she was really sweet. If a guy accidentally says, I love you, ex, or just won't move on, don't let him waste your time. I'm glad I eventually moved on and found a good relationship and got married, but I really wish I had actually given that relationship a real chance to succeed because she was awesome. I have reached out and apologized for being a little shit, and I'm glad, but that definitely isn't enough. Story 19. If he always has something bad to say about other people in his life, or always compares himself to others in a pissing contest, he will do the same to you and probably sabotage your success so you don't outshine him. If a man can't forgive others or show grace when they make mistakes, he won't be understanding or empathetic when it happens to you, or you need emotional support. If he always has an excuse for why something isn't his fault, or never seems to self-reflect on what he could do better next time, he won't consider how his words and actions may have hurt you and will instead blame you. If his describes an unrealistic ideal for a perfect partner, and often compares you to this imaginary, unobtainable standard of perfection because you don't measure up to it, know that you never will, and neither will anyone else. This will make you strive to reach that unreal target until you lose your own identity. He may even show disgust when you show any sign of weakness or imperfection. You won't see any grace from him, and he won't be there for you when times are hard. He will instead reject you. If he tries to isolate you from important people in your life, your goals, your dreams, your job, or even just your likes and hobbies by putting them down constantly, sometimes by putting you on a pedestal in comparison to get you to voluntarily reject major parts of your identity, he is isolating you mentally. This is often followed by, or occurs in tandem with, physical relocation away from all of those important things. Once you voluntarily reject key aspects of yourself and your life, especially after you relocate, you will be too ashamed and confused to recognize yourself, the abuse, and won't trust your own thoughts and feelings about what is and is not right. If he can't take a joke without getting angry that he was made to look foolish, he can't laugh at himself, or seems to derive most of his humor from degrading others or shock value, then he probably lacks any self-awareness and is incapable or unwilling to admit he is imperfect like the rest of us. He likely expects to be seen and taken seriously at all times to align with his self-deluded false identity and jealously guards it. Many of the things I listed here boil down to a black and white, all or nothing, thinking style. We can't always avoid assholes like this because they are skilled manipulators, and/or we are naive and want to see the good in others. This is because we see the good in ourselves and give the benefit of the doubt to people who we hope also share that good. Plausible deniability is a big part of manipulating good people. You don't have to go search for the bad in men or people in general, because they will show you. Of course, pay attention, observe the interactions, and do your due diligence for safety. Instead, focus more on fortifying yourself against men like this by knowing what is and is not acceptable treatment. As soon as the first instance of mistreatment arises, put your foot down and simply declare that you won't allow him to treat you like that. If he continues, dump him. He has no claim to you. Years ago, I dated a man who exhibited toxic behavior. One day out of the blue as we were driving, he erupted in anger while I was sharing a positive experience and looking forward to something at school. His denigrating words left me confused and hurt. I don't recall the exact point he was trying to make, but I felt the urge to retaliate. Instead, I paused and calmly explained that his behavior was unacceptable. I wouldn't tolerate being spoken to that way because I don't speak to him or anyone else in my life the way he was speaking to me in that moment. I felt like a mother scolding a child. As I drove him home, he sulked in silence. I dropped him off, ignored his parting comments, and ignored his messages and calls. He tried to DM me a couple of months after, and I politely replied that I wasn't interested anymore after our last interaction. He went off on me again about how I'm no good, and I actually laughed. I told him that I found it funny he was trying to hook up with me given how terrible of a person I am, and that maybe he should work on his self-esteem and raise his standards, if that was the case. I thanked him for reinforcing my decision and wished him well in life before blocking him. Never heard from him again. In hindsight, it was a pivotal moment, a boundary set, and a toxic connection severed. I walked away, having vowed never to subject myself to such bad behavior from a potential dating partner. They usually escalate over time before threatening your life, so set boundaries firmly, fairly, and fast from the start. Story 20. It can be very difficult. I've heard a lot of stories where guys seemed perfect up until marriage, moving away or some other hard-to-reverse commitment. Then they switched and became horrible abusive assholes. Obviously, still keep an eye open for obvious stuff like being rude to service staff, liking Andrew Tate, etc. But also be cautious if they seem too perfect, always saying what you want to hear. Does it feel like love bombing? This doesn't mean you should reject guys for not being flawed enough, but if someone seems too good to be true, then dig a little deeper and try to get to know them more fully as a person. Can you have a healthy disagreement about something important? What are your areas of incompatibility? If there are people from their past that they fell out with, what was the reason? What would the other person say? You could even be cute about it and be like, "Hey, you seem too good to be true. Can I ask some questions to get to know you better?" But these are more pre-marriage concerns. If you meet the perfect guy and he's into you, then get boned and have fun. Story 21. Most of the comments about red flags are just preference or down stupid. In a new relationship, it's hard to genuinely spot real red flags immediately, and if you do, they are too stupid to hide it even at the beginning. I would say a good red flag is if you are dating for over a month or two, and he is still not introducing to her friends group. This is possibly because you are not the only one, or he is ashamed of you. Either way, you don't want to be with someone who is keeping you a secret. Second red flag is over the months he never takes the blame for anything, and usually reflects. Is human to make mistakes, but to never take accountability about anything is not normal, and you will have a very difficult time with such person. Story 22. Always watch how he treats people around him, strangers and people in service professions specifically. A guy will most likely act like a decent person to you and his family friends, but the way he treats others will be the most telling. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.